If you've watched my channel before, you know that I enjoy talking about bad sci-fi movies. I like poking fun at them, as well as exploring why they don't work. But as much as I poke fun at bad movies, rarely does a movie genuinely make me angry. Not just frustrate or annoy me, but genuinely make me angry that a film exists. And that is exactly what Netflix's latest science fiction movie, The Electric State, made me feel. Here's why. The Electric State movie is based off the book of the same name written by Simon Stålenhag and published in 2017. The book takes place in an alternate 1990s America in which society has fallen apart due to an over-reliance on technology, which has resulted in humans being overtaken by machines. The story follows a teenage girl and her robot companion as they journey across the western United States and see what has become of humanity. This isn't new subject matter for a science fiction story, but what makes the Electric State book so intriguing is its atmosphere and environmental storytelling. The world of the Electric State is compelling because of how dark and unsettling it is. It shares a lot in common with Cormac McCarthy's The Road and Stephen King's The Stand in terms of its atmosphere. What makes it truly unnerving is that, in this world, the apocalypse happens not out of malignancy, but out of apathy. The implication of the story is that humans have become so addicted to living in virtual reality that they just don't care when the world falls apart around them. In my mind, this is far more realistic and unnerving than the idea of a robot revolution as is normally depicted in fiction. This unsettling tone is also further emphasized by the artwork, which is at once beautiful and haunting, showing how humanity has become consumed by the very things intended to make their lives better. There are rarely moments of exposition in the story, but much like in The Road, the nature of the apocalypse is explained to the audience through the environment and the artwork. There is very little action in the story, as the focus is all on the world building and building up the relationship between the young girl and her robot. But I was never bored because all of it was done so effectively. The book is also fairly short, and yet it is able to pack in so much world building and character building in such an effective and efficient manner. And the ending, which I won't dare spoil here, is absolutely perfect. It introduces a plot twist that makes everything else in the story click into place in a way that is perfect for driving home the themes of the narrative. Overall, I'd give the Electric State book 4 out of 5 stars. And honestly, the only reason I give it 4 stars instead of 5 is because I would have liked a little bit more time with this world and these characters. These are all the reasons why the book is so effective in its storytelling, and these are also all the reasons why I can't stand the movie. From the get-go, Netflix's approach to adapting The Electric State into a movie was completely broken. Before the movie was even released, people were already commenting on the insanely high budget of $320 million.
It's time to stop!
Keep in mind that this puts The Electric State as one of the top 100 most expensive movies of all time, and it is nearly the budget of Avengers Infinity War for a movie that wouldn't even be released in theaters. I honestly have no idea how this was the project that Netflix felt like they could invest that kind of money in and recoup their losses. This movie is also directed by the Russo brothers, who are best known for their work in the MCU, specifically The Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. All of which I would count in my top 10 favorite MCU movies and probably some of my favorite superhero movies in general. But the thing about the Russos is that while they have been incredibly successful within the MCU, outside of the MCU, all of their projects have either gotten mixed or negative reviews, and it's unclear why this is the case. Maybe they've just worked so long in the Marvel machine that they have difficulty breaking out of that creative box. And who knows, maybe that's part of the reason why they're coming back to Marvel for Doomsday and Secret Wars. But in either case, getting the Russos to direct this movie may sound good on paper, but in reality, their output has not been very consistent. This attempt to try to turn the Electric State into a Marvel-style blockbuster is also evident in the casting. We've got Eleven, Star-Lord, Short Round, Gus Fring, and George Costanza all in the same movie. This isn't even mentioning all of the high-profile actors that they got to voice the robot characters. I know it's become an overused critique, but this aspect of the movie really does feel AI generated. I mean, think about it. I can honestly picture a board of executives sitting down and saying, okay, let's get the Stranger Things girl, the Guardians of the Galaxy guy, the Mandalorian guy, and the Everything Everywhere All at Once guy, put them in a movie, and boom, instant success. None of them are bad actors, but much like with what I said with Alien Resurrection, it's just another sign that the priorities of the filmmakers are all wrong. The Electric State story was not carried by action spectacle or big name actors, but by its world building and atmosphere, which is completely absent in this movie. The movie completely abandons the dark post-apocalyptic tone of the book, and instead twists it into this sentimental Schmaltzy adventure story. I would call this movie Spielbergian in its tone, but honestly, that would be doing a disservice to Spielberg. A lot of the imagery from the book is present in the movie, but instead of being presented in a way that is meant to be unsettling, it is presented in a way that is meant to be whimsical and wondrous. Going from the book to the movie gave me such tonal whiplash, and it just feels so very wrong for this story. You can't have a story centered around the dangers of technology addiction that also presents all of that technology in a positive light. When I was watching the movie, I made a note saying, too bright, too beautiful, and I think that applies to just about everything here, from the cinematography to the tone. This movie also gives into another trend that has been increasingly frustrating in modern blockbusters: nostalgia bait. This movie is absolutely drenched in 90s nostalgia, from the imagery to the political references to the soundtrack. Now, nostalgia bait isn't inherently bad in a film. It all depends on how it's used and if the premise of the movie justifies it. And in this case, the nostalgia bait is not justified. Yes, the Electric State book was set in the 90s, but it was looking back at that era with a critical eye rather than a nostalgic one. And in the movie, when you have a voiceover of Bill Clinton talking about battling against the robot onslaught,
these acts demand a strong response. As if today, we are at war with the robot population.
how do you expect me to take this premise seriously? Though this premise does lead to this line, which is unintentionally hilarious.
You broke the treaty, Mr. Peanut. That means consequences.
If nothing else, this is the one thing that I'm going to remember from this movie. It also doesn't help that this movie tries so hard to be funny and just isn't. I honestly don't think there was a single intentionally funny moment in this whole movie that I laughed at. This movie has the kind of humor in which it is trying to poke fun at how crazy everything is. Once again, it is just a complete contradiction to what the book was going for. But for me, the biggest crime of this movie is that it spoils the big emotional twist of the book within the first 15 minutes. One of the reasons that the ending of the Electric State book hit so hard is because up until the end, the reader is left in the dark as to why Michelle and Skip are traveling across the country. The movie spoils that reason right at the beginning, which robs the story of any of its mystery and intrigue. The movie tries so hard to have this big emotional ending, but it just does not land because all of the buildup from the book is taken away. The book left so much up to the imagination and interpretation of the reader, but the movie insists on explaining everything about the world and characters, which absolutely killed my investment in it. And ironically, the movie's attempt to be an emotional tearjerker makes it come across as artificial and manufactured. And at the end of the day, you can't expect me to get invested in a film in which the emotions are clearly contrived. Overall, the Electric State movie embodies so many of the problems that have plagued modern blockbusters. The budget is extremely bloated for no good reason, its product placement and nostalgia bait are obnoxious, and it shoves in a bunch of popular A-list actors without giving them any good material to work with. For me, the worst thing that any piece of art can be is insincere. As much as I may make fun of other bad movies, most of them do come from a place of sincerity, of wanting to tell a compelling story and say something meaningful about humanity and the world. The Electric State, on the other hand, feels like a movie that was algorithmically generated to make money. And taking a book all about the dangers of humans becoming apathetic to the end of the world because of technology addiction, and turning that into generic content for a streaming service that people will watch with half their brain while doom scrolling through TikTok is just depressing. It's one thing for an adaptation to miss the point of its source material, it's another for that adaptation to directly contradict the message of the source material. And for anyone who hasn't read the book, they're just getting a generic blockbuster that doesn't do anything new or creative with the genre. I doubt that anyone will remember this movie a week after watching it, which is sad given that the book was all about the dangers of mindlessly consuming content. The Electric State movie is not the most incompetent or egregiously written movie that I've ever seen, but what it represents as the embodiment of the movies as content formula is something that I find deeply upsetting. So for all of that, I'm giving the Electric State movie my first ever half star. I can safely say that the only good thing that came out of this movie is that it got me to read the book. Other than that, this is a piece of media that I do not want to support in any other way. If you've made it to the end of the video and haven't read the book, go check it out. It's a quick read, and unlike the movie, it comes from a place of real sincerity and speaks to relevant issues in our world today. That is the kind of art that we as consumers in the modern era should be supporting. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
You broke the treaty, Mr. Peanut.